Day 135, salt in the ocean water. Our purpose for this lesson is to learn what the ocean water contains. Relevance is that the ocean covers more of the earth than land. 40% of the world's population lives along the coasts, and so this will be something that could possibly be close to you when you move in other places as you move on in life. Success, I'll be able to state what is in the ocean and how it got there. Part 1, the ingredients. We're going to be looking at pie charts for the ingredients of the ocean water. So let's just review a little bit how we do the pie charts. For 75%, we would shade in this much. For 50%, it's half the circle. 33% is a little bit tougher to draw, but it's approximately that. 25% is a quarter. And then 10%, I can think that half of 25% is 12, and that's this much. So 10% is just a little bit less than that. Let's approximate it that way. If you'd please fill in those. And now let's use that information to analyze the percentages of stuff in the water and how much water is covering the earth and all that. Most of Earth is covered by water. Some people have said that we should have named the planet something like Waterworld to reflect that. Here's a pie chart that tells us about the planet's surface. So here we have the ocean is this much of it. That's the salt water. And then we have fresh water as this little sliver. And then the remainder is land. So how much of the Earth is covered by oceans? Well, this much here is pretty much the same as that pie chart there. So it's close to 75%. And so we're going to circle 71 right there. Number 2, how much of the earth is covered by fresh water, such as lakes and rivers? So here's the sliver that's labeled fresh water. Which one of these is it closest to? Well, okay, it's closest to that one. And this is a smaller sliver than that, so we'd want something smaller than 10%. And I believe the option here that is less than 10% is going to be 3% right there. So number 2, letter A, 3%. Let's label the oceans in the diagram on the right. So we need to know all the oceans. Right here, we should be able to recognize the United States right there. So this is the Atlantic. And the Atlantic goes down here as well. On our west coast, we have the Pacific. And on this side of the South America, same thing. Over here on the other side of Africa, we have the Indian Ocean. Over here is a continuation of the Pacific Ocean, so you need to recognize this side as Pacific as well. And that goes down here. And then up here at the top, above Russia, above Canada, we have the Arctic Ocean. Now, just recently, the United States has joined most of the other countries of the world to recognize another ocean. This is just recently in the last few years where this has been a big push. Down here, they're calling this the Southern Ocean. It's right about this line right here and below. It's basically the waters that are surrounding Antarctica. I don't know exactly what the line of latitude is where it separates from all the other oceans. There's no real piece of land that is a separation between one ocean and the southern. It's just a spot on the map. But you have to know all of those for the quiz. It will be on the quiz. Okay, so that was labeling. Let's go to the next one. Here's a pie chart that describes what's in the ocean water. So most of the ocean water is, as you'd guess, water, but there's this much of it that is dissolved salts. So what percent is that? Is that 75%, 50%, 33%, 25%, 10%, less than that? Here are all the options. Well, it is less than 10%. but it's still a sizable amount. So it's not going to be the 0.1%. That would be too small of a sliver. It's going to be 3.5%. It's not 28% because 28% would be something like this. That's way too big. And obviously 45 would be almost half of it. That would be 45%. So 3.5% is dissolved salts. Now there's more than one kind of salt. Salt is a very large category of chemical compounds. The salt that we eat on our food is sodium chloride. Let's read about this. Water can dissolve lots of different rocks and soils. Different kinds of rocks will contain different kinds of salts. The salt that we eat on our food is called sodium chloride. People who have medical problems might have salt substitute that's made out of potassium chloride. The salt that we put on icy sidewalks might be calcium chloride. All of these salts and many others are dissolved in ocean water. The living things in the ocean also release lots of chemicals into the water. Just about any type of atoms can be found in ocean water. Even gold can be found in the water. Here's a pie chart to show us the main ingredients of ocean water. Okay, so we have chloride is the biggest, and sodium is second, and then other elements are the 14%. Number 4, what label should we put on the left side of the pie chart? Chlorine. What label should we put on the top right-hand side? Sodium. So sodium and chloride together make up the kind of salt that we eat. The calcium chloride for sidewalks, that's part of the other elements. Here's a chart that talks about different kinds of materials. So we have the concentration per thousand and the total salinity percent-wise. So the biggest is chlorine and the second is sodium. Number 5, from the chart above, read the middle column. It's labeled parts per thousand. This means that if you had 1,000 random atoms from the ocean, about 19 would be chlorine. How many would be sodium ions? So here's the middle that we're talking about. Here's sodium. So that means 10.7 atoms. Well, let's just round that to 10. 2.7 of those atoms would be sulfates. So that's actually more like 3. And one of the atoms would be magnesium, and so on. Number 6. According to the middle column, there's blank times as many sodium atoms as sulfates. Well, here's sodium, here's sulfate. So if we have about 10 sodiums, but only 2 sulfates, how many times bigger is that? That means, what do we multiply the 2 by in order to get up to 10? Well, obviously we're going to multiply by about 5. That's rounding a lot. So option C. It's about 5 times as much sodium as sulfates. Part 2, the boiling project. You are going to go to YouTube and you're going to type this into the search box of YouTube, or you can do this link here if you want, and you will watch this being done on my desktop. Since it involves fire here, I'm not going to have this done when we have a substitute. You're just going to watch and answer the questions from observations there. After you get done watching that, it's a 5-minute video. You'll be answering these questions on Schoology. As long as you are listening carefully to the video, all of these are going to be found by listening. A couple of these I just briefly mention as I'm talking away. I don't make a big deal out of, here's question number 4, here's question number 5. You have to listen, but I do say the answers to everything here. Part 3, fill in by context. You should be able to fill in all of these blanks with these word banks for each section, we've done this kind of a thing before, just by the context of the sentences, you should be able to see which word goes where. In order for it to make grammatical sense, only one real arrangement of those words is going to work. Same thing with these words here, and so on. You can do that on your own. Now, this is important that you do because the quiz questions will come from this as well. When you are all done with all of those words, you can come up to the front desk and you can check your work with the answer key. Then we have the main ideas of today's lesson. 71% of the earth is covered by oceans. 3% of the earth is covered by fresh water. Main atoms are sodium and chlorine in the water. The ocean is salty because there are many different kinds of salt with different kinds of atoms, and these salts are all dissolved by water. But when water evaporates, the salts are left behind. This makes the ocean water more salty. You can increase the salinity by doing these things, by evaporating out the water or by forming ice. Either way, you're going to have more salty water. And you can decrease the salinity by doing these things: having rivers flow into the ocean, melting ice, have less evaporation, or have more rainfall in that area. All of these things are going to be found out by doing the fill-in-the-blank activities, the context questions that I just showed on the screen a moment ago. And here's our vocabulary for the next quiz. That'll be next week. And then we have homework on Schoology. You're going to graph this data on this grid right here. So let's do the first one. The latitude of 60 north, salinity of 3.25. 60 north, 3.25. So here is 60 north, and we want 3.25, which will be right about there. 3.25, so we're going to put a dot there. You're going to have other dots in various ways. It's not going to be a straight line. It's not going to be one little hump or anything like that. It's going to be a strange pattern. You're going to basically connect the dots with a smooth kind of a curvy line. It's going to look like one of these possibilities. One of those will be closer to your picture than something else. Once you draw your graph, then you'll answer these questions. And that's the end. This will be tomorrow's lesson about currents in the ocean. So at this time, you should watch the YouTube, and then you should do the homework.